I'm a professor at the Choice Institute at the University of Washington, and I am the director or coordinator for the fellowship programs that we have at the Choice Institute. So welcome, glad you could join us. We have a nice little program today. I'll give a little bit of background and introduction on the first few slides here, and then we'll have various folks talk about the individual fellowship programs that we have this year. So Tom Hopkins, who's online here also is helps run or helps kind of serve as a TA for the fellowship program. So Tom, why don't you go ahead and flip to the next slide?
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, next slide. So as I mentioned, I'll give a brief overview and then we'll talk about the specific fellowship programs we have and then some details about the application process. And then maybe most importantly, give you guys a chance to ask questions and try to use that chat box. And we'll just kind of queue those up. All right, next slide. So I think we all, most of you are probably pretty familiar with health economics and outcomes research and what it's about, but it's really about demonstrating value and understanding value. And it can be about economics and cost effectiveness. It can also be about patient outcomes and a variety of different things like that. So I just say that actually did one of these fellowships a long time ago, and I found it to be pure joy because you get to pull in so many kind of different techniques and approaches and combine that with your clinical training and get to do cool stuff with it. All right, next slide. And again, I think we all know regulatory approval is not really sufficient for success uh, uh, in most countries. All right, next slide. Value can mean a lot of different things to different people, and there's a lot of different things that you can do to inform assessments of value. I think that some of the things maybe that you've heard about are, costs and economics and cost effectiveness. There's also issues around, burden of illness and unmet need. And part of the way we help inform these questions is through real world evidence. And if for those of you that aren't familiar with that, that just means a bunch of data, either from usually claims data or electronic health records of things that happen out there in the real world. And it's a very exciting, interesting area right now, using a lot of cool machine learning techniques and big data. And then also, pardon me, patient-centered outcomes, issues around quality of life, et cetera. And how do we kind of pull all of this stuff together is what these fellowship programs are about. Next slide. Go ahead to yeah, next slide. So the Choice Institute is a, a, a research institute in the School of Pharmacy, in the Department of Pharmacy at the University of Washington in Seattle. But what it really is a group of great people, faculty members, staff, and students. And you can see here our mission is really to do research, to really generate evidence that helps people make better decisions, that takes into consideration the value of healthcare technologies and products, and training, which is about what this is about, these fellowship programs are about, and it's something that's very important to us. We love to see folks come out of their clinical training, learn a whole bunch of new tools, and then go out there and have interesting, exciting careers. And then also service, which is just helping be a resource of information and expertise for folks out there in a variety of settings. Um, yeah, next slide. So here are some of the faculty that are in charge of running each of the individual fellowships. Um, Josh Carlson, who's a professor, he's also the graduate program, overall graduate program director for the MS and PhD programs. Ryan Hansen, he's the chair, Department of Pharmacy. And I'm just going to tell you right now, that picture's like 15 years old. Okay. So if you meet him in person, you'll recognize that he's a lot wiser and older than that picture. Naomi Kreff is fairly new assistant professor with our program, Q Lee, Sean Sullivan, and then of course myself. Next slide. Uh, just kind of some nice history of the fellowship program. I actually did my fellowship at the University of Washington. Took some of the same classes, et cetera, that you guys would be taking. And you can see here we have a very long, strong track record of training in this area. It's really something that we're not just proud of, but kind of makes us feel good that we've been able to offer this opportunity to folks. Next slide. These fellowship programs differ across different settings. I mean, some of them aren't even at universities, but ours, we have 1 year at the University of Washington, and the time that you're there, your main focus is going to be getting a graduate degree, MS degree. And so you'll be taking some classes in biostat, epidemiology, economics, outcomes research, and doing a thesis, a master's thesis. And almost all of those are focused on using some kind of database to do an analysis because it's a great learning opportunity. And then presenting at meetings and ideally publishing manuscripts on your work and getting that degree. Now, you'll hear a little bit more about this, but while like your faculty here at UW are the ones that are guiding you in all this, but you also have a mentor at the industry partner, and that person is going to help you, identify a good therapeutic area and maybe help you come up with ideas and things like that. So there'll be a nice connection there also. So once you're done at UW, then you go off to your second year, which is then a whole new exciting experience where you're not taking classes. You are learning some methods and things, but it's really more about understanding how things work in industry and all the different teams that are involved. It's not just an HEOR team. You're interacting with clinical development and commercial and all kinds of different folks and trying to generate all kinds of different evidence. And so we kind of call this cross-functional collaboration. And here's a list of, regulatory affairs, et cetera, all these different groups that you'll work with. And so it's a whole different skill set around, people skills, working with teams, managing up, managing down, et cetera. So again, that's a great experience that people enjoy. Just kind of the standard support and benefits. You get a stipend, which is like a salary. You get health insurance, some relocation assistance, which varies a little bit from fellowship to fellowship. Travel support to go to meetings, and your tuition is also covered. So it's a pretty nice package, probably better than what you got offered to go to pharmacy school. Next slide. So the program structure, obviously, we're based in Seattle, upper left corner there. And then the Pfizer Fellowship is based out of Bothell, Washington. Genentech out of South San Francisco. AbbVie has a couple locations, one in Irvine, California, and another one in Illinois, and another one in New Jersey. Bayer's in New Jersey, and then Sanofi is in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So a variety of different locations. And in part, sometimes people make decisions about which fellowship they're interested in based on geographic considerations. And then we've also seen folks, we've had folks that grew up in Seattle, got their undergrad at UW, PharmD at UW, and then they decided, look, I'll do my master's here, but then I want to go to the East Coast, get a different experience. And so you'll see all kinds of variety of different choices that folks make, but these are all great options for the various fellowship programs. Next slide. And again, here's just a comparison, different locations. These programs, the HEOR units can be based kind of in different, either global or US, and that can have a bit of an impact on your experience your second year. And again, eligibility, really a degree in pharmacy. Sometimes I think 1 or 2 times folks have not had a degree in pharmacy, but they've had an advanced degree and experience in the pharmaceutical industry or experience in HEOR. Next slide. All right, I think I'll hand it over here.
Yes, thanks, Dave. We'll go over the specific fellowships, and we'll have the current fellows speak about their experience so they can give you a better idea of how these fellowships operate. And so the first one is AbbVie, so I'll turn it over to Olivia and Rachel to give a little bit of context about their experience and what the fellowship entails for them.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Olivia, and I'm a second year fellow with ABI. Thank you so much for the intro and quick summary. So I'll be going over the UW-ABI leadership. So from the UW side, we have Q, and then on the ABI side, we have Jay Lee. Next slide, please. Okay. And then these are our current fellows. So me and Rachel are second year fellows. I'm located in Irvine and Rachel in Chicago. And then the first year fellows, we have Andrew and Janice, who are currently in Seattle completing their master's degree. Next slide, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel and I'm the other AbbVie fellow. I'll be giving a brief overview of the opportunities available with AbbVie. So if we look on the left-hand side, you can see how diverse really our portfolio is with the number of therapeutic areas covered. I currently work with the oncology team supporting both pipeline and inline hematology products, and Olivia works with our neuroscience team. But we also cover immunology. This includes Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, psoriatic, and rheumatoid arthritis. We also have eye care, which is wet age-related macular degeneration, and also diabetic retinopathy. We have aesthetics, which is like Botox, and also specialty, which is obesity, HIV, and hypothyroidism. So here at AbbVie, we like to think that HEOR strategy is a strategic thought partner for our cross-functional teams. And we're basically the conductor for the value and evidence orchestra because we have multiple centers of excellence. And so we have one focusing on RWE, which conducts the analytics part of our RWE studies. We also have PROs and the Value and Analytics Center, which focus on indirect treatment comparisons and economic modeling. So on the right side, here we have a list of all the potential projects that the fellows may work on in their second year. This includes those PROs, RWE studies, and econ modeling and indirect treatment comparisons, but this isn't an exhaustive list of what you could be working on. Currently, I'm working on an RWE study determining healthcare resources utilized, an economic model, and I've also informed strategy for an upcoming PRO study. And now I'll pass it over to Jean.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jean. I'm the second year fellow at Bayer, and I'll be sharing the Bayer side of the fellowship. So first off, on the UW side, your primary mentor will be Ryan Hansen. In your first year, you also have some interactions with Bayer, and then in your second year, you'll be transitioning fully to the Bayer side. So the fellowship program here is overseen by Jen Cameron and Bashir, along with two former fellows, Arvin, who's 2 years ahead of me, and Jake, who's 1 year ahead of me. We have regular check-ins with them, but the person you'll work most closely with will really depend on the specific projects and the team you'll get involved in. Next slide, please. So important thing to know is that for this recruiting cycle, Bayer is recruiting 2 fellows. Currently, I'm the only fellow here at Bayer as there's no first-year fellow this year. Next slide, please. So the therapeutic areas in Bayer you can get involved in are cardiorenal, oncology, women's health, thrombosis, early pipeline in neurology and rare disease. So Bayer has what's called the dynamic share ownership culture, which means that you're encouraged to pursue areas that really interest you. So since I started my second year in July, I've been primarily supporting asundexian, which is in phase 3 development for secondary stroke prevention. With that, I've just started to get involved in oncology projects, which has given me exposure to different stages of the pipeline. So looking ahead, I'll also gain launch experience with sebabertinib in oncology soon. So some projects you may be involved in include managing US real-world evidence studies, such as meeting with vendors, developing study concepts, reviewing protocols, results, and final reports. You can also contribute to publications, collaborate with field HOR and global HOR teams, and also cross-functional partners in medical and market access, also commercial. You can also review and adopt the cost effectiveness models for the US market, as well as to develop the budget impact models. Now I'll turn over to Nisin.
Thanks, Jean. Hi, everyone. My name is Nisin. I'm one of the second year Genentech Fellows. And here I'll talk a little bit about the leadership. So we have Dave, who you guys saw earlier, who is our mentor for the first year and second year on the UW side. And then we have Carolina Reyes, who is head of the hematology team here at Genentech, and she is the head of the second year. And then within that, each of us will have a specific mentor specific to our therapeutic area. So mine is Sophia Lee, and Divya's is Elmore. And this year's fellow, Jonathan, has ARPAMUS, but this, like Jean said, this could change depending on the company needs and which therapeutic area you end up doing, and which mentors are available in that space. We can head to the next slide, please. Yeah, and here's me and Divya, the other Genentech fellow, who we'll talk in just a minute. And Jonathan is this year's first year fellow. You may notice that there's 2 in my year, 1 in the first year. And I believe, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's 1 fellow for Genentech recruiting this year as well. And I'll hand it off to Divya to talk a little bit more about the program.
Hi, everyone. I'm Divya, the other Genentech fellow. So we're both out here in South San Francisco, and how the HEOR department at Genentech is it's split into oncology and non-oncology. And so Nissen is the oncology fellow, and so he has solid tumors and heme cancers. I'm the non-oncology fellow, so I get everything else, which includes neuroimmunology, which is mainly multiple sclerosis, ophthalmology, which is products such as Vabysmo, respiratory for asthma and COPD. We also have rare disease and pipeline and foundational products like Tenecteplase. The therapeutic areas span the entire pipeline, so you have the opportunity to work on products that are still in clinical trials, but then you also have the opportunity to work on products that are close to launch as well as post-launch. So far, projects I've been involved with have been study plans for treatment pattern studies, literature reviews, and other types of supportive projects. And then in the non-oncology space, there's a huge emphasis on unmet need. So a lot of studies based on different populations and in different types of diseases. You also will have the opportunity for strategic planning, cost calculators. These are some of the examples of projects that you can be involved in. Nissen, if you want to talk a little bit about projects you've been involved in.
Yeah, sure. The most interesting thing has probably been putting on the strategic planning hat. But otherwise, I agree with Divya, and some literature reviews and a little bit of supporting everything else as well.
Now I'll hand it over to Catherine to talk about Pfizer.
Awesome. Thanks, Divya. Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Perkins. I'm the second year Pfizer fellow. And so I'm going to start off by introducing our leadership for the program. So Josh Carlson is your University of Washington mentor for the first year. He really guides all of your projects that you're working on as a fellow, as well as teaches some of your courses in HEOR. Then the second year, the fellowship director is Josh Roth, and then also Liz Masters oversees the program. Josh Roth is going to be your primary mentor. I met with him pretty much every week during the first year of my fellowship, like Dave mentioned, to help guide the focus of my projects. And also he has great technical training and sat on my master's thesis committee. Liz oversees so at Pfizer, HEOR is called HV&E. HTA, Value and Evidence is what it stands for. And so Liz oversees that department. Next slide, please. And so we are the current Pfizer fellows, myself and Jacob, Jacob is our first year fellow. We are both located in Seattle because I didn't move for the second year of the program. I live about 10 minutes drive from the University of Washington, and then Bothell is about a 25-minute drive north to the office. So it's really nice that, yeah, you really don't have to go anywhere, and the commute is pretty easy, and the Bothell office is lovely. Next slide. as you all know, Pfizer is ginormous. And so this fellowship program sits under oncology, Liz Masters' team. The oncology team is split up into breast cancer, GU cancers, precision medicine and lung, hematology, biosimilars, and supportive care, which is kind of a little bit of a catch-all, but that's where I'm sitting working on ponsegromab, which just started its phase 2b trial in cancer cachexia. And then we also have our pipeline team and US Oncology. Then we have, similar to how Rachel talked about the Centers of Excellence, we have a methods and innovation team, which is where our patient-reported outcomes or clinical outcomes assessment team sits. Also our modeling experts, and people that put together trainings to help support and make the overall HV&E team better. Some additional HV&E therapeutic areas that exist at Pfizer include specialty care, which has hemophilia, rare disease, rheumatology, dermatology, primary care, which is migraine, cardiovascular disease, and then vaccines, of course. But this fellowship primarily focuses on oncology. Though you have the opportunity to meet people and learn about those other therapeutic areas, that's probably not where the primary focus of your projects are going to be. So many of the projects are the same across the different companies as far as study types. Some key studies that I've been able to get involved with is patient-reported outcomes studies for supporting our phase 2b trial and phase 3 trial for clinical for patient-reported outcome endpoints. Patient preference research, which is a little bit different than PROs. We have amazing experts that you get to work with here at Pfizer. And then the same cross-functional collaboration with market access and regulatory and medical. You get to contribute to clinical trial design. As I was saying, those PRO studies are supporting our trial endpoints. And then you get US and global perspectives at Pfizer. And then contribute to the strategic evidence generation, managing vendors for all sorts of study types like indirect treatment comparisons, real world evidence, and process dossiers. So with that, I will pass it over to Kevin to talk about Sanofi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin, and I'm the second-year fellow with Sanofi based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. This is one of the newly established fellowships in 2024, so I'm the first fellow with this partnership, and we are recruiting for one fellow for this year. On the UW side, the mentor is Sean Sullivan. On the Sanofi side, we have a new head, Jan Hansen, who started about 2 weeks ago and will be the fellowship sponsor. But the main preceptor is Ron Preblik, who's head of US HEOR for General Medicines. He'll be your main point of contact during your first year. But since this fellowship is focused on global HEOR and specialty care drugs within Sanofi, you won't be directly working with Ron, and we'll be working instead with another HEOR lead during your second year, depending on personal interests and business needs. Next slide, please. So Sanofi is really all in on immunology. So currently I am supporting 3 early pipeline immunology assets targeting asthma. But again, specialty care is not limited to immunology. It also includes neurology, oncology, rare diseases, and rare blood disorders. On the right, we have a non-exhaustive list of projects that you could work on as a second year. But since I'm working on early pipeline assets, a lot of my focus right now is on integrated evidence generation planning with cross-functional partners in clin dev, medical, and commercial. So it entails a lot of generating internal insights using real-world evidence to inform phase 3 trial design. But again, not limited to that. There's also opportunities to work on projects for indirect treatment comparisons, economic modeling, evidence synthesis, and PRO development.
Awesome. Thank you, all the fellows, for giving a description of the individual fellowships. I'll take it over from here until we get to the Q&A. So I'll try to go a little bit through this as efficiently as possible because I know that there might be quite a few questions and we have some anticipated questions as well. So before we get into the application process, I did just want to highlight this slide. And this slide is showing some of the recent fellowship alumni. These are actually exclusive to the last 2 years. I'd like to point out that with this, you can see that there are quite a few people who stayed on at their sponsor company that they joined initially with the fellowship. And so that's something that is very promising. Not to say that that's going to happen for everybody at every company, but there is a really strong track record of individuals staying at the company that they started at or switching to a different company that might be a better geographic location or a better team or something like that. Um, Before I move any further, I just want to thank Dave for introducing me. I'm a second year PhD student here at Choice, and I am the person who will be kind of like the teaching assistant for all of you, so or for anybody who joins this fellowship. So whether that be guiding a boot camp in the summer to helping you with your theses and just troubleshooting code, that's something that I am here to try to help and give some support on. Additionally, I was a Bear Fellow a very long time ago. If you were able to scour the website thoroughly enough, I was a Bear Fellow in 2018 and 2020. So I am very familiar with this process. I know the position that some of you might be in applying for this and how overwhelming it can be. So I just wanted to give you some insight into that, that if you were to join and be part of this fellowship, is that I do have a little bit of experience being in your shoes. Okay, let me advance. So the application process, I'll go over this. I'll go through this and give some nuanced aspects of this. A lot of this is on the website, but there are some key things that I want to point out and make folks aware of. But if you have any questions in regards to the application process, please feel free to refer to the website. And in addition, there is an email that will be listed on these slides and on the website as well that you can always reach out with any questions that you may have. So here is the overview of the application process. So to be considered eligible for this fellowship, you do have to have a degree in pharmacy by July 1st of 2026. That should cover, I believe, all pharmacy schools within the US. Somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, but that should cover all pharmacy schools by the time that they graduate. You must also hold a US citizenship or a permanent residency status to apply. So that is one of the caveats of applying to the program. The timeline of this, it is relatively quick. It is a quick and a process. So the application deadline is a little bit less than a month. It's on October 20th. You will receive interview notifications relatively quickly after that, with the plan of being October 27th. There will be virtual interviews that go from October 29th through November 7th. So with that, it is about a week and a half. So you could anticipate potentially getting some offers for interviews during that time, from October 29th through November 7th. For offer notifications, it will be rolling. There won't be a certain date that offers go out. They will come through rolling, so you could get an offer anytime after the interviews. And then the program start date is set for July 1st, 2026. I want to point out here that classes don't actually start until the end of September. I have not started classes again. So there is a good amount of time between the time that you start and by the time that you start classes. Don't worry, we have stuff for everybody to do. That's when you will go through, if you decide to join this fellowship, you'll go through a boot camp where you'll learn some intro to research aspects. You'll learn how to do some coding, how to code in some of the basic languages, get familiar with their data sets, and you'll also be working on a project over the summer. So those are some of the things that you will be doing over the summer to try to get yourself acclimated with HEOR and of course get acclimated with the city, because the 9-month master's program is quick and you want to make sure that you have some time to get to know the program, get to know some of the people in the program and everything like that. So with applications and some interview tips, I want to point out some of these things. If you have not contacted your recommender, the people who would be writing you letters of recommendation yet, I highly encourage you to do so as soon as possible. I would probably think by the end of the week is probably a good time to have as a final deadline of contacting recommenders. A good thing to do, and this is just good practice, is to include a cheat sheet of information about the program, anything that you would like the recommender to potentially highlight about yourself, and just any information that you think would be pertinent for the person who's writing a letter of recommendation to help out with. Again, we hope that you would submit a strong, focused, and well-edited CV, which would highlight some of these things that are very pertinent to the fellowship, which are research skills, data analysis skills, any relevant rotations, electives, courses, presentations. It could also be jobs and internships and things like that that would be relevant. Those would be important to highlight. And then any leadership experience that you have would also be something that would be good to highlight. If you have any projects that are relevant to HEOR, I would recommend that to definitely highlight those. That would be something great to be able to talk to about in interviews. If you do have any experience on any HEOR projects or any projects that you believe are somewhat similar to HEOR. So that's an important thing to highlight. Don't forget thank you emails. I know that it can be, with the application season, it can be a lot, but those do go a long way. And I can't emphasize enough to just relax, be calm, be yourself. It's just as much of an interview for you to see if this would be a good fit as it is for the other side to make sure that it's a good fit for everybody. So how to apply? The important note on this is that these fellowships do not go through the PPS system that I believe residencies still go through, is the PPS system. This is completely separate. So you would apply individually to our fellowship application process through the UW Graduate School. And so there's just some instructions here about the link of where to go to apply and some information that's important. You would put in that you are the application type is graduate. And the program type, the slide next after this, I'll show you exactly what they're asking for on that and give you a little bit of a visual. I do want to point out one thing about this with the additional materials. It is important to complete and upload the fellowship selection form to indicate which fellowship programs you're applying to. And you can select all that apply. You can select all of them. You can select just one of them. With these selection forms, you are not ranking the fellowships, you are not putting them in any preference list order. You are simply just saying, I am interested in this fellowship. I would like to be interviewed for this fellowship. All of the all of the application processes for the individual fellowships are handled independently. Selecting which ones you are interested in won't have any bearing on any of the other fellowships. So you can expect completely different recruitment processes for each of the fellowships. Maybe a little bit. In general, it'll be the same, but you can expect to see different people, of course, and to maybe have a little bit of a different process. So this is showing a visual of what you would do if you were to fill out the application process and you would select that you are applying for a graduate program. And then down here where it says select your program, it would be pharmacy, health economics and outcomes research, and then make sure that there's a master's designation. There's also a PhD program, so you want to make sure that you are filling out the right one because PhD applications are also ongoing. This is the additional form that we ask that you fill out and upload with your application materials. Again, this is just showing which fellowships you would be interested in, and then filling out your name, your date, application ID, and email. I do want to point out that if you were early to the process and filled out this form earlier, I guess closer to September 1st, there was also Novo Nordisk, which was listed as an option. We are not offering a UW Novo Nordisk fellowship this upcoming year. With that being said, if you were one of those people who selected that Novo Nordisk fellowship, you don't need to resubmit this form or resubmit anything. We will just assume that you are no longer applying for that one since it's no longer available. So don't worry about resubmitting anything if you selected that fellowship. And again, you don't have to select all of them if you don't want to. And again, no ranking or anything like that. So we also do have a detailed how-to document to filling out the application, which you can find on the website. Again, all application materials must be submitted by October 20th, the deadline, and the application fee is $90 to apply for this. And it's just a one-time application fee. You don't need to apply for every single fellowship that you're applying for. You fill out the general graduate application, and then that's that supplementary document of where you fill out or check which fellowships you're interested in. That's the separation of which fellowships you might be interested in. So there is a waiver that's eligible for students if for the $90 fee. if you would like to request a fee waiver, there's a link down here that you can go to submit a fee waiver for this. It does need to be submitted at least 7 days before the deadline, but it is based on some eligibility criteria, so median family income. If that's something that is something that would be a barrier to you, please feel free to go to this website to see if you'd be qualified for a waiver to be able to uh, circumvent that. Okay.
Hey, Tom,
believe-
can I just add for the application fee waivers?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marina. I'm the graduate program manager for Choice. All that is asked of you when you fill out that financial need waiver is just a numerical amount of your annual income for the previous tax year. So, I mean, assuming for students that are currently in pharmacy school, I would guess that most of you would apply or would qualify for a fee waiver. And it's just a matter of getting it in on time so they have enough time to process. They are not put through too much scrutiny. So I would recommend just submitting that request to not have to pay another application fee.
Awesome. Thank you, Marina. Okay, so this opens it up to the portion of the Q&A. I'm sure that there might be some questions out there. You can feel free to raise your hand and I'll call on you. You can put something in the chat, as Marina has already put the first chat in there, suggesting to anybody, if you have a question, you can feel free to drop it in there. But while we're starting to think about that, I did have a couple questions prepared that I believe might be relevant to a lot of people. So I wanted to ask those first. And I will pose some of these to the fellows and see what their thoughts might be. And so I know one of the main questions, and I touched on this briefly, was the retention of graduates from the fellowship program into companies and kind of the experience that they might have after the fellowship of not finding a new company, but finding their next role or their first role in that in HEOR. So I just wanted to give the opportunity to see if there's any fellows who wanted to speak to this, to feel free to unmute yourself and just give a little bit more information if you have any about this process.
I can start. So on the AbbVie side, it all depends on the business need and if there is enough headcount. So far, AbbVie has done a pretty great job about retaining their fellows. So a lot of the people that you saw on the list, they're now managers, either in a contract position and then move on as full-time employees within the company. But again, it's all case by case, year by year, and you may also end up in a different team than what you were as a fellow, but it gives you a good opportunity to also move around within the company. Since it is such a large company, you'll have plenty of work to do.
Thanks, Rachel. Not sure if anybody else has.
I can jump in and I can also hit one of the questions that's in the chat. Pfizer has HEOR fellowships with a couple of different schools. And this year, all of our fellow graduates, so that would be 3. Jennifer Deem, who's the year above me in the UW program, got hired on straight out of fellowship into a senior manager role. Arvin and Neo, who's the UIC fellow, all came into senior manager roles this year. Oh, the question ran away. Do fellows get teaching certificates or have any teaching during the first year of the master? So no, you're fully dedicated to your time to learn. During your time as a master student, you'll be plenty busy with the projects that you have, your thesis, and then there's also a literature review project over the summer, and then a big modeling project that takes up the fall quarter.
Wonderful. Thank you, Catherine. There's another question that I'm going to ask that I did see pop up in the Q&A, but it's also something that I think is really important. So I'm going to ask before we get into some of the other questions. And this question is, could any of the current fellows maybe briefly describe what type of HEOR experiences they had prior to starting the fellowship?
Yeah, I can start with this one. I actually did not have a lot of HEOR experience coming into this fellowship. The main thing that I had done that was purely HEOR was two claims-based analyses during my pharmacy school. And so one was part of an elective course, and then another one was part of an ABI. And then I had done an internship at Janssen, but I hadn't done anything HEOR specific. But I would say talking about those two projects, as well as talking about and being knowledgeable of what's impacting industry, really helped me in my interview, despite not having that experience.
Awesome. Thank you, Divya.
I can follow up. My experience was mostly around working with the Hopes group at the University of Connecticut. So we did a bunch of various literature reviews, systematic literature reviews, and some smaller topic meta-analyses. And I basically just spoke to that, talking about real world evidence, synthesizing things, and focusing on outcomes for me. And I just wanted to learn more about the methodology and how to generate that evidence. So that's what piqued my interest. That's how it got me here.
Awesome. Okay. I don't know if anybody else has anything to share, any other second year fellows. But to continue on with some of these questions that are in the chat, looks like there's been some that have been answered. The next one that comes up is this question of, will the fellowship program consider candidates with a degree in pharmacy but a graduate degree in computing science? If so, what specific experiences and criteria may help to build a strong application? If you are in a position where you don't have a PharmD, for instance, let's say you have a PhD or something like that, that would be a pretty specific question that I would recommend reaching out to the email that we'll have listed to ask about that. Typically, the students that come into this program are PharmDs, have either recently graduated with their pharmacy degree, or something, or their PharmD, either recently or the year before that. So that's a little bit more of a specific question, unless I'm misreading this question. But that is something that has come up a little bit, and that would be my recommendation, is to reach out personally to see, because that would be more of a case-by-case basis. This fellowship is designed for students who have recently completed pharmacy school, but that's not a hard and fast rule necessarily.
Yeah. No, I think that's the right approach to reaching out to the, individual fellowship mentors, et cetera. But good quantitative skills maybe, but then the thing that you might want to have is some exposure or experience with healthcare of some kind, right? If you came into this thing with like no healthcare experience or exposure, it would probably be a pretty steep hill for you. So we're just kind of looking for that mix of those two different things.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Okay.
There's these questions are coming in
They are. I'm trying to keep up.
fast. I don't know if it got it.
I think this is a good one, and I know that I appreciate the fellows answering some of these questions, but there are some that I'm going to point out. This one I think is important. What conferences have fellows had opportunities to present research at? And I know that Jean listed emphatically ISPOR. Yes, that is a big conference that we like to go to. ISPOR is a common conference that fellows go to. I'm not sure if any other fellows have gone to any other conferences. We did host the Western Pharmacoeconomics Conference that Jean had mentioned in her comment. But ISPOR is the primary conference that most people do go to. But that's not to say that you have to go to that conference. You get support to go to a conference, so you could choose a conference that you think might be more relevant. I don't know if anybody else has anything else that they'd like to add to that. Okay.
I'll say Genentech, depending on which therapeutic area you're in your second year, you may be able to go to some specific conferences that relate to your disease area if you get a publication worthy thing going and you can get it sponsored by the company.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There's a good question in there about what's the day-to-day like as a first-year master's. So
I saw that one. Yes. So we can go to that one. And then Lena, I see your hand, so I will call on you right after that. But yes, that was a question is what does a day-to-day look like for a master's fellow? And I will allow one of the fellows, the second year fellows, to answer this since it's more recent for you.
I can go ahead and answer that, but I also want to highlight for the ADVI fellow, we're only recruiting one fellow this year. I forget if I mentioned that during my intro. But as for day to day, every day it's very different. I know we hate hearing this answer. But during the first year, we usually have like 3 or 4 courses every quarter. So that kind of ranges from like biostats, epidemiology, modeling, health econ, as well as policy. So depending on which quarter you're in, you'll be in classes, and then afterwards you'll be kind of like studying, like finishing up your coursework. And then I would say a large chunk of time was also spent on just working on your thesis, either the cohort building in the beginning of the year, and you kind of move on to analysis the second half or like later half of the year. I know there was a question on interaction with second year mentor during the first year of the fellowship. So as for me, I met with my UW advisor once a week, and then I met with my the advisor or like manager every other week. And then me, Rachel, and our advisor would meet around once a month or so. That was the cadence that we had. But I think it kind of depends on which company you're at.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Lena, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to ask generally amongst the programs about the research that's involved during the first year, if every program gets to publish and if they also get to present like their work at the conferences that they go to.
Yes, I think that's an excellent question. I'll start off with it briefly and then I'll allow any other fellows to answer. So you primarily So you have projects for classes that you will work on, and those are independent from your theses that you'll be working on, but then you also do have your thesis. You will also be working on a systematic lit review over the summer that you'll be working on. So there is a lot of opportunity for folks to present different types of research at conferences that they've been working on. I think at least at ISPOR this last year, we had a good variety of fellows who either presented a cost effectiveness analysis that they're working on. I think somebody presented a systematic lit review. I think somebody presented on their thesis. So there is opportunity to work on multiple projects, and then you do have the opportunity to present that research at conferences and be able to disseminate that. And I hope that that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. Okay. Let me take a look.
Yeah, there's one question there about what role the industry sponsor has with the thesis, and I think Divya, like you win the award. You're the best question answer in the chat there. You're going crazy, but I think some of the fellows are weighing in. It varies a little bit from company to company, but generally speaking, they like, we all like you to work in a certain therapeutic area so you can kind of focus your efforts, etc. So generally it's like, okay, here's a therapeutic area, or you might have an option, a couple different therapeutic areas. And then in my experience, the mentors on the industry side, they know the HEOR in that area extremely well. And so they have a pretty good idea of what potential master's thesis topics might be. And so they usually throw out different ideas, and we bat those back and forth, et cetera, and pick those out based on which ones seem most interesting and most feasible. But really, it's the university faculty who are in charge of your thesis at the end of the day. So it's a pretty good collaborative process, I would say. And there's probably some other answers there in the chat.
Yes. I see another question that came up and it said, touching on ranking research with intention, can you name some examples of HEOR focused research that you would like to see? Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing this is for the application process. I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a ranking of any type of research that you do. I think what is most important to the interviewers and the people that you will be speaking with is really how the research that you worked on was meaningful and how it relates to HEOR and how your experience working on that could help prepare you for a career in a field in HEOR. So to have any types of rankings on any type of research, I think is not the intention at all. And I don't think that that would be something that would happen. I think it really is about how you can speak to your experience and how that experience might relate to the fellowship specifically.
Yeah, and I'd just like to kind of emphasize and highlight that and something Tom said before, which is be yourself. It's really like out of the things you've done, what is it you like? What excites you? Why do you want to do this? Why is HEOR like, why are you drawn to it? Don't be afraid to kind of, let your emotions come across a little bit there. So those are the kinds of important things that can really help you stand out during the interview process.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm looking through, I looked through quickly. I don't know if there's any more questions that I have not answered from the chat. Somebody can keep me honest. Let's see. I can also look at the other questions that I have prepared.
Tom, there's one in the Q&A, not the chat, from Durdana. Any recommendations on how to begin a career in HEOR for those who don't get an HEOR focused fellowship offer?
That is an excellent question. I don't know if I'm the best person to prepare that question or to answer that question. The only thing I can say is there are other opportunities, and I think Dave, maybe not, I might be misspeaking. There are other opportunities to get involved in HEOR. I know that UW has a certificate that they offer in HEOR and data science specifically. I know somebody who was in pharma or was in the pharmaceutical industry and was not in HEOR, and they ended up doing the UW certificate for HEOR after spending some time in the pharmaceutical industry. And now I believe they are director of HEOR. So it's not a one-all be-all, but I will defer to the experts on this.
Yeah, there's a variety of different things you can do. Some of the folks that end up working at HEOR, they come more from the managed care space. So I've had some great students. I tried to get them to do an HEOR fellowship, and instead they went and did managed care, and they did great, were successful, but then eventually became interested um, in HOR and kind of moved into that space. There's also just, training in any kind of like the public health, master's of public health type stuff, population health type stuff. But I'll tell you another big push right now, a big thing in HOR is we generate all this evidence. How does it get used? Who uses it? So there's a lot of interest in folks out there kind of on the working out in the field, interacting with payers and even clinicians, et cetera, market access folks, medical affairs. So any kind of experience in those spaces can be valuable also.
Thank you. I didn't see another question, but this is something that I wanted to touch on just briefly, because I know that many of you are probably looking at multiple types of fellowships. And I wanted to point out an advantage of the UW fellowship that I think is really important. And that is that you do have that separation where you spend your first year at UW and you become really close with your cohort. I know that the second year fellows will probably attest as well. I feel very comfortable saying that they become close. You're able to collaborate with them, and that's really where some of the best learning happens. At least when I was in the fellowship, being able to work directly and being able to focus on coursework with your co-fellows is really, really helpful. And I will also say that the UW now coming into being a PhD student, the graduate students love when the fellows come in. We love to be able to teach you anything that we can or just help you along with any way. So I just wanted to point that out, that I think that that's something that's great about this fellowship, is that you are able to interact with the fellows directly, and it's not as separated as it might be at some other fellowship opportunities. Let's see. Believe all the questions should be answered in there. I think this, unless anybody else has a question that they're have pressing, I will ask another one that I think is also important. And this is, can you speak to the work-life balance of this program? So fellows, if I could have if a fellow could just speak to maybe what the work-life balance looked like during the first year and maybe during the second year. I know that you, with that transition going into the second year.
I can take this one. So I think that like the first year being a master's program, you guys have been doing school. You know how to do school. I think that that is, that part is pretty straightforward. I think that there are times where you can, the content is very different from pharmacy school, learning biostats, learning how to code. And so some of that can be difficult, and everybody kind of learns at their own pace with that. Any prior experience is great, but everybody takes their own amount of time. I mean, the thesis in a 1 year condensed master's is a heavy lift, but you guys have all killed pharmacy school. You guys are gonna do great in this program as well. And then the second year, unlike other programs, a lot of the other master's fellowships that I looked at when I was applying, the master's goes into the second year, so you're still taking classes. It's really great that this one you're done with your courses and everything. You graduate in June, and then you start at the company in July, and then you work a normal job, and you don't have homework afterwards, and can attest that it's really fun to have an evening to go and enjoy Seattle during the summer, because it's very lovely, or to move to your respective places and enjoy the summer. So yeah, no, there is a different balance. It's more of a dance in how you choose to manage your time. And yeah, happy to elaborate if you guys have any other questions.
Awesome. I know we only have a couple minutes left. So with that, I can maybe ask one more pressing question. Unless anybody else has a burning question, I would much prefer to prioritize somebody's burning question. If anybody has one.
I don't have a burning question, but just to add on to Catherine's answer, I worked during pharmacy school. You will not have time to work during the master's program. Everyone warned us, and I was like, oh no, it'll be fine. No, you will be absolutely like, it will take up all of your time. But it's every second is worth it. So I learned so much.
Agree. And just kind of piggybacking off of that, a number of us did take our NAPLEX, and we are licensed. So we have that always in our back pocket. But agree, don't have time for a part-time job like you're doing in pharmacy school, like internships and stuff like that, because now you're a full pharmacist, and being a full pharmacist on the weekends, a little bit harder.
Yes. You do get paid though, so there's less pressure of that.
Yeah, which is great.
Thank you, everybody. This has been wonderful. I appreciate all the questions and interest. Again, if you have any questions that were not covered, or if you feel like the questions weren't covered for your specific situation, or if you want more information, there is this email that's down here, the UW choice at uw.edu. Feel free to use that. We'll answer your questions, and really thank you everybody for attending this info session. I hope it was helpful. And as always, reach out if you have any questions about this. And yes, thank you everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everyone.